On November 2nd, officers arrived at his home with a search warrant. In the apartment, they found 26 mummified bodies. Upon closer examination, they realized that these were not whole bodies, but life-size dolls made from the remains of children. Anatoly Moskvin was born in 1966 in Nizhny Novgorod. He came from a very educated family. His father was a scientist, his mother an engineer. At school, Anatoly was a gifted student, most interested in languages. In his teenage years, he learned English, German, and Japanese. After graduating from high school, he entered an Institute of Foreign Languages. Later, Moskvin enrolled at Moscow University in the Department of Germanic Linguistics and moved to Moscow. By that time, odd and disturbing traits had already begun to appear in his personality. Professors at the Moscow University reported that he wrote a completely insane dissertation on Celtic Germanic contacts. Moskvin was a diligent and hard-working graduate student, but he was also fascinated by bizarre anti-scientific ideas. For example, he talked a lot about Satanism and claimed that Celtic druids possessed secret knowledge. In addition, Moskvin told acquaintances that he was in contact with a certain community that worshipped Lucifer and even held exams in black magic. As a result, he failed to defend his dissertation and returned to his native Nizhny Novgorod. Back home, he taught English, took up local history seriously, and became fairly well known in his city. His personal life, however, never took off. At home, Anatoly had a huge library that contained many books on black magic and esotericism. He often spoke of his great respect for Satanism and criticized Christianity. He had mastered 13 languages and, together with colleagues, authored several scientific works. One of them was devoted to a folk play doll. Besides linguistics and folklore, Moskvin had another passionate hobby: cemeteries. The hobby turned into a professional interest. The scholar often walked among the graves with a notebook and a pencil. Over time, he wrote a great many articles on the history of cemeteries. Residents frequently turned to him for information about their ancestors or to locate a burial site. Later, Anatoly claimed that he had studied Celtic culture and discovered that druids often slept on the graves of the dead in order to communicate with spirits. Moskvin asserted that he began sleeping on children's graves and that the spirits of those children visited him. Then he started digging the children out of the graves. He also said that he had long dreamed of taking a child from an orphanage. The parents of the family he lived with opposed the idea, believing that their son could not handle parental responsibilities, and the authorities denied him adoption, citing Moskvin's low income. Deeply upset, he went for a walk in the cemetery. There he noticed an inconspicuous grave of a little girl and later began to exhume the burial. The body was in very poor condition. The girl was dressed in a white blouse, a black skirt, white stockings and shoes. She had long hair. Anatoly decided to try mummifying a body for the first time. Occasionally, strangers remarked that a suspicious person was regularly walking around the cemetery, but he explained that he was feeding the birds. In May, while the body was being mummified, Anatoly brought it home and, as he described, restored it. He stuffed it with cloth and pads and placed a wax mask made from melted candles over the face. He then slept with the resulting doll at night. Later, he began to exhume other bodies and mummify them as well. When investigators asked why he kept the bodies in his apartment, Moskvin answered, "The thing is, I practice black magic, so I wanted to revive these children. I felt great pity for them. They could still live and live. He added that he kept them so that when science learns how to fight cancer, we could bring them back to life. He obtained remains not only from nearby cemeteries, but also traveled to various regions. He transported the bodies in large bags so that fellow commuters on the train would not suspect anything. In each of his dolls, Moskvin created a special compartment inside the chest cavity and placed various items there. A piece of soap, plush hearts, stockings, a small fragment of a tombstone, or a hospital tag that is attached after death. In short, horrible things. Most of the dolls contained mechanisms. When pressed, a song or music from a music box would play. During the raid on his apartment, officers also found many other strange objects. A woman's leg in a lace sock and a tiny shoe, a human skull, and 2 large boxes filled with human bones. All of these items were sent for forensic examination. Investigators found personal belongings of the deceased girls in some of the bodies. One had a piece of a gravestone with her name sewn into it. Another had a hospital tag with the date and cause of death. A third had a dried human heart in her chest. Moskvin processed the decomposed corpses. He stuffed them with rags, covered them with nylon tights, and sewed on the heads of stuffed animals. He inserted buttons or googly eyes into the girls' eye sockets so they could watch cartoons with him. During interrogations, the necropolis expert claimed to have loved his girls and cared for them as if they were alive. "You got rid of the bodies, and I picked them up," Moskvin said. Each of his girls had her own name and story. Among them were unloved children he kept in the garage. After the mummifications, a slightly odd smell lingered in the apartment. When acquaintances asked about the odor, Anatoly Moskvin replied that he was conducting magical experiments. Over 8 years, he exhumed and mummified at least 26 bodies. He made about 30 dolls. He talked to the dolls and performed rituals with them. He had a hierarchy among the dolls, a private language, songs, holidays, essentially their own inner world. Mosvine knew the details of each exhumed girl's fate. He remembered all of them by name and knew the short, tragic histories of their lives. Their ages ranged from 4 to 30 years. One of Moskvin's students, Ilya, said he had seen the dolls many times. To him, they seemed to be made of ordinary rags, and he did not attach much importance to them. Ilya was aware that his teacher was involved in esotericism. He explained the obsession as follows. He was seriously into black magic and practiced it. Those witchcraft dolls were, as I understood, needed for rituals. He didn't like to talk about it. The phrase that he was building a family of dolls is a misinterpretation. He wasn't creating a family in the usual sense of father, mother, children. He was creating a magical family according to the rituals he was fascinated by. These dolls exist in a kind of double world. They're half alive. The search of Anatoly Moskvin's home was carried out for an entirely different reason. It took place in 2011. On January 24, 2011, a major terrorist attack occurred at Moscow's Domodedovo airport. A terrorist detonated an explosive device on himself, killing 37 people and injuring 170. Soon after, graffiti began appearing on cemeteries in Nizhny Novgorod, mainly the inscription 24th of January 2011. Some people also painted over portraits on monuments where Muslims were presumably buried. The phenomenon became widespread, prompting the police to monitor cemeteries more closely. This led them to take an interest in the activities of local historian Anatoly Moskvin. On November 2nd, officers arrived at his home with a search warrant. In the apartment, they found 26 mummified bodies. Upon closer examination, they realized that these were not whole bodies, but life-size dolls made from the remains of children. And eventually, it was discovered that there were even more dolls, 29 of them, in the apartment and in the garage. Police also found photographs, gravestone plaques, instructions on how to make dolls, and cemetery maps. Journalists reported that they were not allowed inside, but they saw dolls being carried out of the apartment. They looked like they were made of rags and were covered in fabric. Moskvin never went to prison. A psychiatric examination determined that the local historian suffers from paranoid schizophrenia. In May 2012, he was sent for compulsory treatment, and since then, he has not left the clinic. Thank you for watching the video to the end. To support the channel, please like and subscribe.